Hey, how are you, Richard? It's good to see you back. Uh, what we're going to be doing today is you had taken five assessments. The last session that you came to see me, and we're going to be going over your assessments. Uh, you took the five of them, and three of them were they were broken down to three and two. And the first three had to do with personal assessments. And we're just going to go over the personal assessments right now. The first one was the acculturation rating scale for Mexican Americans, consists of two scales. The first scale measures have 30 points, which track Mexican Americans' orientation. Um, Anglo orientation and also to produce a multidimensional configuration with two acculturation modes, integration and assimilation. The second scale is the marginality scale. This consists of 18 items, and we're just going to go ahead and look at the points for this particular scale. Um, According to the acculturation rating scale for Mexican Americans. Um, as far as these have to do with the Likert scale, which is one being the least to five being the most. So if you score one, that means you are the least like this. If you score five, that means that you scored high or you're the most like this. So as far as your Anglo-oriented subskill, you scored at a 4.31. Now you are a second generation Mexican American, so you were raised in the United States. So according to this scale, you very much relate to the culture that you grew up in. You Whether it's going to movies or whether it's associating with what people might consider white culture or Anglo American culture, not necessarily white culture, but what's associated with Anglo American culture, you scored at a 4.31. For Mexican oriented subscale, which is how you relate to Mexican culture and how you use it in your daily life, you scored it at a 1.8. So it seems like a big part of you has assimilated into American culture because you were born American. And of course, when we're talking about Anglo-oriented, we're not talking about white culture. Well, we kind of are talking about white culture, but we are talking about the dominant culture that many of us encounter when we live in a particular country. And in this particular case, it's an Anglo-oriented subscale or an Anglo-oriented culture. Now, as far as a linear acculturation scoring from very Mexican oriented to Anglo oriented, you scored at a 2.51. So it seems that as far as you personally, you feel that you are kind of in the middle. You probably, your family is Mexican, so very much you share a lot of the identity from them. When you are at your house, the culture is generally Mexican, I would assume. But when you leave the house, there's that part of you that again you fall into Anglo-oriented culture because that is what you are surrounded with, which is interesting. There seems to be kind of like you seem to be caught in the middle of these three things. Anglo oriented, Mexican oriented, and also where you fit in as far as Mexican American or Mexican oriented or Anglo oriented. When we look at the marginal scale, which is two scales, as far as how you feel marginalized by this particular race or this particular ethnicity, because you're kind of caught in the middle. For Anglo marginality subscale, you scored at a 3. and this is a 1 out of 5. So it seems like to a certain degree you feel some form of, somewhat, you feel somewhat marginalized because of your Mexican identity by by the Anglo culture that you have grown up in. For Mexican marginality, you scored at a 2.8, which is not a 3, but it's very close to it. So again, it just seems that you're kind of caught in the middle. You're that second generation where you are not necessarily in any particular culture. You're in the middle, and oftentimes, because whether it's someone who comes from a very Anglo culture, most of third, fourth, fifth generation, most likely they might, you might feel some kind of racism towards, I mean, from them. And again, because you share a lot of Anglo culture and you scored so high in there, someone who might be a first generation Mexican might find you not to be Mexican enough. So you scored a 3 and a 2.8 for those, which is interesting. So Mexican American marginality subscale. So that is kind of like where you feel, when you are among people who are Mexican American like you, do you feel like you are being marginalized? But and it seems to, according to this, it seems like overall you feel like you fit in most of the time. I mean, sometimes I'm sure that there are some issues. So it seems like you're someone who's kind of caught in the middle of American culture or Anglo culture and Mexican culture, and oftentimes you may be, do you feel that sometimes you're forced to choose? The next one that we're looking at is the self attitude inventory. And these have to do the self attitude inventory. They're broken down into two scales. The first scale is confidence, which is personal confidence, and the second one is popularity and social approval. As far as, and these scales are out of 16. So as far where which 16 is the highest, and obviously, like 1 would be the lowest. For confidence or personal confidence in yourself, you scored at a 9 out of 16. So, I mean, that's still good. It seems like you have an okay confidence as far as you personally. I'm sure there might be sometimes that you struggle, and that's something that we can look at deeper. But as far as your popularity and social approval, you got a 13 out of 16, which means that as far as socially, you often feel that you feel good in front of people. You're able to relate to people. People are able to relate to you. You feel that you are in your zone. It might be that when you are alone or by yourself, you may not feel the same way as when you are around people. So that's something that we can look at, and this might have to do with an identity, as some of your scores have shown for the acculturation rating scale for Mexican American. You seem to sometimes be caught in the middle, and that's sometimes hard to know how to feel about those type of things. And someone's confidence might be hurt because of that. We also looked at the Rosenberg self-esteem scale, and this is out of 30, which the lower scores means, that as far as self-esteem, someone may struggle with self-esteem. In around 30, that means they have a very high self-esteem. And it seems here that you scored a 10 out of 30, which it's interesting because it seems like you, according to this particular, to the Rosenberg self-esteem scale, your confidence is struggling. This might have to do with just personal choices, how you feel inside. And it's interesting, kind of like comparing this one to the self-esteem attitude inventory. Attitude is just more how you carry yourself. Rosenberg's self-esteem is perhaps how you feel about yourself, where you belong. And again, this might relate to an identity of always having, and that identity is worth something that we can explore. The next two assessments that we're going to look at are career assessments, and we're going to look at the career decision self-efficiency scale. And we're also going to be looking at the multidimensional sense of humor scale. Um, Now, the career assessment, the career decision self-efficiency scale, um, this has to do about making career choices, making career decisions, being confident in the decisions that you make, knowing that you're making the right choices, knowing whether it's you going to school, or just taking the right steps to point your career in the right direction. It's out of 125. So if someone gets a score of 125, that means they have a very, very high confidence in the career choices that they're making, in the direction of their career and where they want to go. They're very self-assured in that aspect. And of course, having a lower score means that the person has low confidence as far as career decisions. And in this one, you seem to score 92 out of 125, which seems like you're around the middle, maybe around, if we were to average those out, we might get around maybe a 70 or 80, and that's something that we can do later on. But it seems that you are somewhat confident in your career. I think it's interesting to look at and compare that to your self-attitude inventory, where you got a 9 out of 16. They seem to kind of match up with each other. You're kind of a little above average, but yet there's something that seems to be holding you back, perhaps, and that's something that we can explore further. Again, you decided to take the multidimensional sense of humor scale, which again looked at your sense of humor and how you use it in a social gathering. And this one, of course, it's out of 120, with 120 being very high, and anything lower than that means having a low use of sense of humor, or that you have a difficult time, relating that aspect of yourself in a social gathering, especially in a career sense. It's interesting to see that you got a 99 out of 120. And this one, I have this averaged out, and we can average out the other one. That'll be something that we can do quickly. And this is around an 83% of the time. So it seems like 83% of the time you were able to use humor in your work environment, and it seems to be something that you can do very easily. Again, it's interesting to see that in a social situation, you seem to be very easy with the way that you're able to carry yourself and relate to people. And in this particular case, you're able to make them laugh. Attitudes towards humor itself, you scored it when we look at and break it down to the subscales. You had a 9% of the time that you use it. Attitudes towards humorous people in general, that means that you're able to get along with people, which is 27. And all this, when you add it up all together, adds up to 100%. And then the use of coping humor, which you use 15%. And then humor, creativity, social use of humor is at 49%. So again, at a social aspect, you use humor to allow you to kind of just be able to work and do what you need to do. I found these to be interesting in the sense that you seem to overall carry yourself well. One of the areas that I would like to look at is maybe perhaps when you are alone and you don't have these things that allow you to kind of like express yourself in this particular way in a social gathering, and what is the difference between that that particular environment and when you are alone, and how does your confidence what is it about your confidence that's not able to carry over, and how can we bring the part that's you socially, that's so high up and feels so good about things and the direction that you're going, and we can find a way of how it correlates, or or how it does not correlate, and what are the factors that are causing it not to line up. And so we're able to build some of your confidence when you are by yourself, or what are some things that we can do to or take certain assessments that are able that will be able to pinpoint some of the areas that we can work on, so that not only when you are at a personal level and by yourself, you can have a good strong sense of who you are, good confidence, carry yourself well, have thoughts that are positive, that allow you to continue to build towards an identity at a social level. So you have a personal and a social self that is strong and healthy. I think one of the things that we can do by integrating these results again is to just look at who you are privately, and look deeper into what might be the things that require worth exploring. And this just will take going through therapy, of course, and breaking that down and seeing how that looks like to you, and how I can guide you in that particular path of finding what you need, or giving you what you need to be able to continue to grow. So I mean, for me, for the plan for the future, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go and start, having therapy, and start working on the things you want to work in. And I really look forward to working with you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. And of course, you're going to get a copy of these assessments, so you're able to look at them closer, and you can ask any questions that you want. And have a wonderful day, and I will see you soon next session, right? See you later, all right? Bye-bye.